Win big with new DRF All Access past performances. With one best-in-class product, you now get all 3 past performance formats. Go to DRF.com and use coupon code 1FREEPP for a free single card today.
Hey everyone, Nicole, Russo, and Dan Illman coming to you for this week's edition of the Oaks Countdown. With a little less than 4 weeks to go, the field for the Philly Classic is starting to come into better focus. Let's take a look after last weekend's action at the final point standings toward the 14-horse starting gate. Who's in, who's out at the moment, maybe hoping for a defection or two. Several solidified their places last week, including champion Just FYI with the comeback effort that we'll talk about. We've removed from this list West Omaha and Regulatory Risk, both of whom would be in the top 14 on points, but whose connections have specifically said that they're looking elsewhere. Regulatory Risk, trained by Brown for Klaravich, and they're basically withdrawing her so that Ways and Means is guaranteed a spot in the field, and a vote of confidence for that filly.
Certainly is, Nicole, and Chad just feels that Ways and Means has a better chance of winning a race like the Kentucky Oaks than Regulatory Risk. And from what we've seen through 3 starts from Ways and Means, he might be right. She was a dominant debut winner at Saratoga. She ran very well in her second and final start as a 2-year-old when she was second in the Grade 1 spinaway. And then she returned off a lengthy layoff, had an enervating trip to be sure, and she ran a fine second in the Gulfstream Park Oaks. She's a very, very talented filly. She's light on experience, but Chad does believe.
Yeah, and as we've told you, the major prep action last weekend helped shape these standings. By no means we should point out the final field is coming into these last couple of weeks. You know, you could see a horse or two kind of drop out of the mix to point elsewhere, or hopefully no mishaps. But the major prep action last weekend really helped shape these standings. And let's start a look back at that by taking a look at the Grade 1 Ashland at Keeneland. We talked about the salty field last week, and it was the well-bred Leslie's Rose, beaten last time in the Devona Dale, splitting horses and powering home to this win. A good step forward, I thought, from previous racing experience for this filly, whose connection said she might have been intimidated by some traffic last time out.
I think that's a very good point, and I think it was very important for this filly to show that she could sit behind horses. In her prior 2 wins, she was either on the lead or right up there pressing another foe for the early advantage. In the Ashland, she was very calm and relaxed, sitting off of horses. We saw her finish strongly. She sold for 7 figures as a yearling. You mentioned her beautiful pedigree. She's just another running fool by Into Mischief, the best sire in the States.
Absolutely. And Into Mischief will have a chance to take on both the Derby and the Oaks this year. He's certainly proven he can get that classic type horse. You mentioned her, sitting behind horses very comfortably and then finishing up well. Just FYI, running second did as well, finishing with interest. And while it wasn't really a dramatic run against the bias that we saw from the likes of Sierra Leone and the Bluegrass on Saturday, I really liked the way both of these fillies finished up on a track that was really favoring very forwardly placed horses all day on the dirt.
I agree. And Leslie's Rose earned a very powerful 95 Beyer speed figure. Just FYI, I think Bill Mott gets to breathe a sigh of relief. I think he's probably very happy to see what he got from last year's 2-year-old filly champion, considering that Just FYI was way behind schedule going into the Ashland. She had not run since her victory in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. I think this was a nice step forward for her. She earned a career best Beyer speed figure in this race. The question is, will she have enough prep or enough foundation for a race like the Kentucky Oaks? I just trust Bill Mott in this situation, and I trust him implicitly.
I certainly trust Bill Mott. He's the sort of person who can circle a race and work backward from it and have a horse ready to peak. You did mention, of course, that this was sort of plan B for Just FYI after missing a run in March after developing a temperature. But I do have to think that she will move forward the second time off the layoff in the Kentucky Oaks. Certainly think that little bit of added distance will be well within her scope. I just think it's developing into an interesting race because you see a lot of fillies that I think are poised to take a step forward, that have moved forward in these final preps or that are coming forward into the Oaks. So it's just a question, We saw her move forward from 2 to 3 with that career best buyer, as you said. It's just a question of if she can keep developing, I think, at the same rate
And
of
I
some
don't
of
think
these
there's any reason
others.
why she can't. She showed she could still step with that good performance in the Ashland. What I'm excited about this year's Oaks as a bettor is this seems like one of the more evenly matched Oaks fields that we're going to have in the last 5 to 10 years. The favorite might be 7 to 2 or 4 to 1. Right now, it could be Tarifa. It could be just FYI. It is a very, very intriguing betting race. I'm curious as to your thoughts on Jody's Pride, who her connections after she won her at Aqueduct in her seasonal debut immediately told me after the race, well, they were going to go to the Gazelle, which would have been an easier spot, at least on paper. They decided to change course, run in the Ashland. They drew a terrible post position. They ran wide. They didn't exactly run where I think they hoped. Where does that leave her for the Kentucky Oaks?
Well, it's a question of how much she got out of this final prep. As you said, they were looking at the Gazelle. They decided to come to Kentucky a little early and take a swing in a grade 1 race with a bigger purse. The draw was not with them, as you said. I don't think anything's, amiss with her out of that race, but it's just a question of she didn't really run her race. We talk about these preps. A prep race in the true sense of the word is supposed to move you forward. And how much did she get out of this race from a fitness, from a seasoning standpoint? Will it move her forward? And, but again, value on a filly who to this point had done nothing wrong. If you think she can bounce back in the Oaks, you're going to be rewarded for your belief.
No, you're absolutely right. You're going to get a price now on Jody's Pride, and she has done little wrong in her career. And if you simply want to say the track played against her, the outside post and the trip played against her, she is certainly a candidate that can move forward. And again, a very evenly matched edition of the Oaks.
Now, there were 2 other graded races for this division last Saturday. The Santa Anita Oaks won't produce a Kentucky Oaks starter as the top 2 finishers were trained by Bob Baffert. But as we watched the Gazelle, the winner, Where's My Ring, shipped in from her California base. She had been second to Kinza and the Santa Isabel. So if you think highly of those California fillies, here's maybe an intriguing play for you in the Oaks.
This was a nice placement by these connections. Where's My Ring was favored in the Gazelle, despite still being a maiden, but she was always well thought of by her connections. She actually ran in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies last year, finishing 8th behind Just FYI. But it seems like she's a new filly ever since these connections added blinkers to the equation. She seems more focused. She seems more tactical. She seems more confident. And it looks like she's coming into the Kentucky Oaks in the right manner at peak form. The question is, it's going to be a step up in class. The Gazelle fillies, the fillies in New York, they just, in my opinion, have not been as strong as we've seen elsewhere throughout the country.
I'd agree with that opinion, but certainly Where's My Ring taking a nice step forward here. You mentioned the addition of the blinkers. I liked the way that she powered clear of the aforementioned regulatory risk and continued on well to the wire, even while some of those were in close quarters at the top of the stretch. The consistent Jin third, a stakes winner earlier this year at Aqueduct, coming back to Churchill Downs where she broke her maiden. That's another very consistent filly from a good barn who you're going to wind up with value on in the Oaks if you like her.
That's a good description of her. She's very consistent. Right now, I think she lacks that explosiveness. I think that she's kind of a grinding sort. She's very dependable. You're going to get a price on her. For her to win the Oaks, in my opinion, though, she's going to have to take a step upward too, because again, she's going to be facing a lot stronger competition at Churchill Downs. So she's going to need a trip and a step forward. But as you say, value is there for a top barn.
Well, these fillies now, all the prep action is complete. They're starting to make shipping plans and workout plans for the Kentucky Oaks. They've all got to be on the grounds at Churchill Downs by draw day on April 27th. We're going to have plenty of time to delve into some of the candidates in more depth, a little bit more in the coming weeks. We're now really in this final countdown on the Oaks Countdown. Stay tuned with DRFTV.